So, the Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender Season 2 teaser just dropped, and before we get into the footage, I need to be honest. This show has one of the weirdest hype cycles I've ever seen. Season 1 came out, I binged it in one night, called it a microwave burrito, more on that here, and then almost 2 years went by, and like a lot of you, it started to feel like a fever dream. I saw people on Reddit literally say things like, not gonna lie, I completely forgot about this, and this new age of 6 episodes every other year is actually quite boring. We've had fans saying that these don't feel like shows, they just feel like movies chopped up into bite-sized pieces. Others saying the world doesn't work in live action. And still others going, look, I was disappointed, but I'll give season 2 a shot. So the fandom is all over the place. Some checked out, some cautiously optimistic, and some hate watching from orbit. And even in the lead up to this teaser, that weird energy continued. Avatar Studios dropped a podcast episode with a title that sounded like it was going to be the Avatar Cinematic Universe Master Plan, and then basically said nothing new. Meanwhile, Netflix just quietly went, here's a poster, here's Toph, trailer tomorrow. And once again, Netflix kind of swooped in and hijacked the conversation. If only the Netflix marketing team could work at Avatar Studios. So, all of that is the emotional baggage we're carrying into this teaser, so keep that in mind. Season 1's mixed bag, the apathy, the episode count anxiety, and is this actually a real show discourse? And with that context, let's talk about what's actually in this teaser, because there is a lot that looks like it's going to be really good, and a lot that still has me nervous. Right from the jump, we open up on bare feet in the dirt, the blind bandit herself. And look, for all my mixed feelings about season 1, it is never, ever not cool seeing this stuff in live action, especially Toph. The original live action movie never even got to see her, so this is her true grand debut. We hear a little bit of her voice too. There's not quite the same gritty, razor sharp sass as OG cartoon Toph, at least not yet, but she does sound like a kid, which I actually like. They've clearly aged her up alongside Aang, so she's probably going to be around 13 or 14 now, so she can more closely match him. I just need to hear a little bit more before I decide if we're getting that full Melon Lord energy we know and love, or if the show is going to Sokka her humor a little bit. And that's the tension right away. The image of Toph is incredibly faithful and exciting, but in the back of my mind is that fandom concern. Are they going to flatten her personality like they did with some of the others? Then we cut to what looks very much like the Serpent's Pass. We got the Mechanist riding on Appa, Teo gliding alongside him, very clearly a live-action invention and a continuation of what we saw set up in Season 1, with the Yomashu and Mechanist storyline. And honestly, I am okay with Netflix having its own canon. A lot of people frame changes as disrespect to the source material, but that's never been my core issue. I don't inherently dislike changed events or shuffled arcs. My problem, and I think a lot of fans' problem, is that in season 1, it often felt like they didn't trust the original pacing or character arcs, so they crammed in future reveals and rewrote lore without having the writing to back it up. So when I see this stuff, my reaction is, visually, cool, conceptually, fine, but is the writing going to support these choices this time around? Because a lot of these comments, I'll wait for a trailer to hold judgment, and after season 1, there's nothing that I really can see that can be approved in on the original. Those are really comments about trust in the writing, not the visuals. Then we finally get our first look at Aang, and yeah, Gordon Cormier definitely looks older. Doesn't look as grown up as the poster made him seem, which makes sense because posters are usually shot way later than principal photography, but still, the Aang grew up overnight reaction from the fandom is real. Now, here's where I'm actually a little off-center from some of the discourse. I've said this before, but I'm actually okay with an older Aang. Even in the original, it always bugged me how fast Aang and Katara seem to master waterbending. If there's roughly a 1-year time skip baked in here, his progress feels a lot more believable. Earth and fire were always going to be his real weak spots at the end of the show. So if we get Sozin's comment and Toph is still calling his earthbending shaky and he clearly needs more time with firebending, that actually tracks better with his age jump. The part that still worries me isn't Aang's age, it's the season's length. We still don't have an official episode count, and fans are already out there talking about the new age of 6 episodes every other year is boring, and these feel like movies chopped up into pieces. Whether it ends up being 6 or 8 episodes, it's still a tight squeeze for book 2, and this teaser is leaning into a lot of big story beats. That's where the pacing anxiety creeps right back up for me. Then, oh, be still my Zuko loving heart, we cut to Zuko and Iroh training lightning redirection. It looks good! Zuko's scar is more textured and ragged, and his hair is longer, giving that very, mid book 2 breakdown energy vibe. It doesn't look like we're going to get the gradual hair evolution we had in the cartoon, but I'm okay with that. The important thing is the vibe, and the vibe is here. This boy is going through it. And this is where I want to acknowledge that season 1 wasn't a disaster. A lot of us walked away feeling hollow, but there was genuine strength, and Zuko was the strongest of them. When the show leaned into his arc, into his conflict, into his relationship with Iroh, it actually felt like it understood Avatar. So seeing this part of his journey realized in live action with that level of visual polish is one of the main reasons I'm not like, I'm out, I'm never watching this again. There's still a foundation here. We also see Aang training with a blindfold, which is a clear nod to Bitterwork in his earthbending training with Toph. Live action Bitterwork has so much potential, Aang getting absolutely bullied by rocks with a tiny earthbending prodigy verbally annihilating him, and now that we've aged up Toph up closer to Aang, I really want that annoyed sibling energy where she's calling him Twinkletoes while he eats dirt for the 5th time. If they commit to that dynamic, her roasting and his scrambling, it'll go a long way towards easing some of the fears that fans have, and rightfully so, that the humor might be neutered, like some feel happened to Sokka in season 1. Then the teaser circles back to the Serpent's Pass again, and we finally see the sea serpent itself. Visually, the show is doing its thing. Koizilla was one of the big visual effects highs of season 1, and the serpent looks just as epic here. The scale, the movement, the sense of danger, it all reads really well in live action. And this is where I push back a little bit on that comment you see floating around, this world just doesn't work in live action. I get where that's coming from. We've had one terrible movie and one mixed bag season, but stuff like Toph's seismic sense, which we'll talk about later, the serpent, lightning redirection, it does work. You can see the version of this show that absolutely sings. The question isn't, can Avatar work in live action? It's, can the writing catch up with the visuals? Also, small thing, but Aang has grown up so much that his old glider now looks like it was ordered from the kids section. My guy needs a glider upgrade. You cannot be out here fighting sea serpents with a fun-sized staff. Zooming out for a second, one of the biggest criticisms of season 1 was that everything looked too clean. Clothes, sets, props, like everyone was personally washing and ironing their outfits between takes. And we saw from the poster that they released yesterday that they've taken note. Patched clothes, scuff marks, dirt, wear and tear. Seeing it in motion in the teaser, it really does feel like that they've made the world more lived in, and also that they've been on an extreme journey. Now, of course, that doesn't fix any story issues, but it does show that they heard at least some of the visual feedback. Then there's a shot that looks a lot like the Fire Nation Capital, big sweeping architecture, that classical red and black palette, which ties into all the expanded Fire Nation Palace stuff from season 1. And that's where my guard goes right up. I wasn't in love with how they handled that before. Azula didn't feel as intimidating as she should have, and showing us more of Ozai so early stripped away a lot of his mystique. A lot of fans felt like the show wanted that Game of Thrones political intrigue vibe without, fully earning it. So if we are heading back into that lane, I really hope the writing has sharpened up. Visually, it's cool, I just need the character work and the tone to match the weight of what they're trying to do. Though, I will not talk bad about that intro to season 1. I think the season 1 intro is still really badass with Sozin and everybody else. And then we get another look at Sokka. No notes on Ian Osley. I think he was one of the bright spots in season 1 despite the writing. And Azula's lighting generation looks fantastic. Blue lightning in motion is honestly hard to mess up, but they nail the weight and impact of it, and it looks painful in the best way. It also looks like they might be remixing the chase a bit. We see Zuko throwing down with Mei and Ty Lee alongside the others, which I actually love. It gives Suki more agency and raises the emotional stakes. This ends up being the moment she gets captured, maybe to help Team Avatar escape. And look, I hate to say it, fam, but with a shortened season and how expensive Appa clearly is, I'm not holding my breath for a full, faithful Appa's Lost Days adaptation. So I don't think that we're going to see Suki and the Kyoshi Warrior Eaters fighting Azula and Mei and Ty Lee. I think we're going to see this kind of remix chase thing happening, and I think this is the point. This is the point where Suki is going to get captured. And I know Appa's Lost Day is a beloved episode, but from a brutal production standpoint, it's exactly the kind of thing that gets cut when you're working with fewer episodes, and a CG bison that costs a small fortune every time he blinks. Don't hate me, hate the budget. We also get some shots of Katara really flexing her waterbending, which is great to see. One of my biggest gripes from season 1 was that Katara felt emotionally flattened. She's supposed to be this incredibly passionate, empathetic, and sometimes hot-headed character, and instead she often came off like she had this emotional depth of a stone. I saw people say every scene with her felt like a downer. If season 2 gives us both stronger waterbending set pieces and more emotional depth from her, more anger, more joy, more vulnerability, that alone will be a huge course correction and a clear sign that they listen to the fan feedback. And then the teaser ends on the money shot, our full look at Toph. And she looks fantastic. Milky eyes, rough bangs covering her face, it's all there. The poster already hinted that we understood how important her design is, but seeing it in motion is a different thing. Seismic sense, oh my god, seismic sense might actually be my favorite visual idea in the whole teaser. You really feel like she's seeing through the ground with her feet, maybe even more clearly than the original animation. The way the earth ripples and pulses around her sells the idea instantly. Then she pulls up that rock fist from the earth and it just looks sick. I am extremely here for it if that is the visual look, for sure. A lot of the fans were clowning the Toph Timu wig from the stills, but in motion, what matters is her presence, her movement, her bending, and on that front, I think the teaser actually nails it. The teaser closes out with saying, coming in 2026, no specific date yet, but based on how Netflix usually rolls these things out in timing of this teaser, I'm personally expecting something like March or April 2026. That's just my guess, not confirmed or anything like that, but I think that's the correct window. Overall, I genuinely enjoyed this teaser. Visually, they absolutely delivered. Toph looks great, the Serpent looks great, Zuko and Iroh look great, and the lighting generation from Azula, awesome. And I do think this answers at least one fan question. Did they listen at all? On the visual, tonal, and lived-in world front, I'd say yes, they clearly did. But the same caveat from my book 1 review still stands, and I think this is where a lot of you are stuck too. The problem was never just how the show looked, it was how it was written. Pacing, characterization, some pretty drastic lore changes that weren't always for the better. A teaser can't prove that the writing has leveled up, it can only show us vibes and cool moments. So for now, I'm in the space of cautiously optimistic, but not fully trusting yet. This teaser makes me want to believe again. I love being hyped for Avatar, like that is like my jam, that's like my favorite thing to do. It reminds me why a lot of us were excited in the first place. But whether it can win over the people who said, I completely forgot about this, or the folks who bowed out after season 1 and said, there's nothing really here that can improve on the original, that's going to depend entirely on the scripts and the episode structure when season 2 actually drops. Before we wrap up, quick plug, if you are into Avatar and you like YA fantasy with elemental magic, big emotions, and young heroes juggling power, destiny, and identity, go check out TJ Young and the Orishas written by yours truly. It's basically Percy Jackson meets West African gods with its own magic system, mythos, and coming-of-age chaos. If that sounds like your vibe, links in the description below. Anyway, that's my reaction to Avatar The Last Airbender Season 2 trailer. Let me know in the comments, did this teaser pull you back in from apathy, or are you still in the, wait for the full trailer mode? I'll be doing more breakdowns as we get closer to release, so stick around, and as always, peace, love, and remember, be water, my friends.